Chair, good morning. Today we return again to hearing evidence from the bereaved families of those who died while under the care of trusts in Essex. This morning we will hear from Sally Tyler, who will give evidence about her ex-husband Mark Tyler, who died on or about the 1st of September 2012. This afternoon we'll hear from Timothy Whitfield, who will give evidence about Margaret Anakin, who died on the 3rd of July 2015, aged 68. Both of those sessions will include details of the care and treatment received by those who died, and will also include some particularly difficult detail about how they died. Time permitting, Chair, we will also play the pre-recorded evidence session of Emma Harley, who gave evidence about her brother Terence White. He died on the 14th of April 2019, aged 36. And, Chair, Mr. Griffin referred to that evidence during his opening statement. As on previous days, there may be aspects of today's evidence that are difficult to listen to, and for some people it may not be possible to sit through the two sessions. As with other days, anyone in the inquiry room should feel free to leave at any time. May I take this opportunity also, please, to remind those engaging with the inquiry that emotional support is available for all who require it. Present here again today are emotional support staff from Hestia, an experienced provider of emotional support at these types of hearing. They are currently in this room and can be identified by their orange-coloured scarves. There is a private room downstairs where anyone who needs emotional support can talk to the Hestia support staff, or if you prefer, you can speak to a member of the inquiry team and we will put you in touch with the emotional support staff. For those following the hearing online, information about the emotional support that is available can be found on the Lampard Inquiry website at lampardinquiry.org.uk, and the support tab is near the top right-hand corner. As always, we want everyone engaging with this inquiry in whatever way to feel safe and supported. Could the witness be sworn, please?
I, Sally Tyler, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. First, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Sally Ann Tyler.
Thank you. Sally, you received from this inquiry a request for written evidence under Rule 9 of the inquiry rules, and you provided a witness statement, which is 79 pages long. It's dated the 12th of September 2025, and you should have a hard copy of it in front of you.
Yes.
Could I ask you first to turn to the very end of the statement at page 79, please?
Yep.
That is the page where you made a statement of truth and you signed. Is that right?
Correct.
Are you happy sitting here today that the content of your witness statement is true and accurate?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sally, you are the ex-wife of Mark Tyler, who was found deceased at his mother's home on the 3rd of September 2012 from a self-inflicted shotgun wound, yes?
Correct.
We note that his date of death is not known, but that it is likely to have been the 1st of September 2012.
Correct.
In the days leading up to Mark's death, and while suffering from psychotic symptoms, he killed his mother, also with a shotgun. She was found with him at her home on the 3rd of September 2012.
Correct.
Yes? What I'm going to ask, please, is that before we begin your evidence and go through some of the events leading up to those dates, that we show a photo, please, of Mark Tyler for those watching and listening to see him. Thank you. Sally, I want to note just two matters before we start to go through what happened. The first is that I think an inquest was held into Mark's death in March 2013. Is that right?
That is correct.
The other is that I want to note, because we're going to talk about it during your evidence, that following Mark's death and his mother's death, a domestic homicide review was carried out.
It was, yes.
The report that came out of that review was published in 2015, and you refer to it throughout your witness statement,
yes.
And we will look through some parts of it to look at some of the key failings that you have identified. I'm going to refer to that report throughout as the DHR.
Okay.
The review was commissioned under Section 9 of the Domestic Violence Crime and Victims Act 2004, and I think it was commissioned on the 19th of September 2012. Is that right?
Round or about, yes.
At that time, it was intended that the review should take about 6 months.
Yes.
But if we have a look, please, if you go back now towards the start of your statement and to page 2.
Yep.
If you look at the 5th paragraph, which begins with the words, the complexity, what we're told there within the DHR itself is this: the complexity of this DHR did not become apparent until after its outset. The process of reviewing the breadth of information that was made available, and in particular, Sally, I wanted to note this, and the complex web of relationships between agencies and Mark over a time period of more than 3.5 years proved very time-consuming. What the DHR panel decided to do was to take longer and to investigate more comprehensively. Would you agree?
Yes.
So the report was not actually published until 2015.
Indeed.
Just going back to that particular phrase, the complex web of relationships between agencies, if you could turn, please, because I think this will help those listening to understand the complexity of these events, to page 5 of your witness statement and to paragraph 25. Thinking about that phrase about a complex web of agencies, you say there so many agencies were involved. Now, I've counted 13 different agencies that
Yes.
you list there at your paragraphs A to M. Those include Basildon and Thurrock University Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, the Borough Council, the Ambulance Trust, the County Council in 2 parts, Essex Police, Probation Services, Open Road, and SEPT, Community Drugs and Alcohol Service, as well as SEPT, Mental Health Services. I highlight that now because I think one of the crucial failings that you want to address in your evidence, and you must correct me if I'm wrong or I put it badly, is the complexity of that web that is described and the failure of communication between all of those different agencies over the time period.
Absolutely.
Is it fair? Would it be fair for me to say that it is your view that not only were there significant failures in communication between those agencies, but that despite Mark's involvement with one or more of them at any given time, it appears from your analysis of the records that there was no oversight or overview of his care?
No, there wasn't.
I'd like to take you first, please, to quite shortly through Mark's background, because we're going to come on to hear that he did have substantial problems with substance misuse.
Yes.
And my understanding is that it's extremely important to you to establish how those arose and in what circumstances.
Yes.
In other words, what was underlying those substance misuse issues. when they began. We don't need to go to it unless you want to, but if you do want to sort of orientate yourself in your witness statement, I'm looking at page 3 and from about paragraph 10, where you've set out some matters about Mark's family background.
Yes.
As a child, I understand that Mark and his brother Lee witnessed significant domestic violence towards their mother.
Perpetrated by their father, yes.
Thank you. His childhood, you say, was one of fear and trauma.
Yes.
He felt safer out of the home.
Both boys did, yes.
There was also significant violence towards Mark and his brother.
Yes.
You explained to us that Mark was bullied at school.
He was, yes.
And you also tell us, in particular, in addition to the sort of home circumstances, about an event in London when Mark was 15 and was attacked by a group of older males.
Yes.
That event, I think Mark described to you as the day he lost trust in everyone.
Yes.
He was left by his friends.
He was.
And when he returned home, my understanding was that he was essentially ridiculed by his father for not fighting back.
Yes, he was.
That ridicule went undefended by his mother.
It did.
And you go on to say that what you can recognise, looking back at those events in hindsight, is that his mother might have been in what we would now call survival mode.
Absolutely.
You say that you are aware that at that time, I think we're talking about the early 80s, levels of understanding about domestic violence and its impact were not what they are or perhaps should be now.
Domestic violence wasn't publicly spoken about back then. It didn't have the gravitas that it has now, and we didn't identify risks to the victim, the survivor, or to the children the way we do now, such as having Marek. That wasn't around.
Yes. Safeguarding provisions were almost non-existent in comparison with today's world.
Absolutely. They would now be considered a high-risk domestic abuse family.
Yes, thank you. In terms of Mark himself, you tell us, and if you want to follow, I'm looking now at page 12 and at about paragraph 48, but you don't need to, just so that you know where I am in the witness statement.
Yep.
His first symptoms of mental ill health began at around age 13.
Yes.
At that stage, he was self-harming, including cutting his arms, and he was smoking cannabis at 13.
He was.
He described that to you as a way of dealing with or an outlet for his mental pain, is that right?
Yes.
By 19, you tell us that Mark was using heroin.
He was.
And it's at paragraph 49 where you set out some matters from the DHR. The records show that by age 23, Mark was injecting heroin.
He was.
Again, your understanding, and this is what he explained to you, was that he was effectively self-medicating.
He had described to me that he heard voices and had uncontrollable anger and severe paranoia, and when the gym didn't work, the heroin did.
Yes. What year did you meet Mark?
I met Mark in 1998.
Thank you. So that year, you tell us that in the July, that's when he first explained to you what you have just described. He told you that he was afraid.
Yes. He wrote me a letter telling me that he was, of what his symptoms were, and that he was fearful that our unborn child would also have it.
Yes. I think he said apart from the fact that he disclosed to you that he had heard voices for most of his life,
Yes.
he felt that ghosts were talking to him.
Yes.
He suffered rages so uncontrollable that he would black out and be unaware of what he had done in that period.
Yes.
And he was scared not only that whatever was in him, as he described it to you, would affect your unborn child,
Yes.
but he was scared that he would hurt you or someone else.
Yes.
And that was as early as 1998.
Yes.
He said he had experienced these mental health problems most of his life.
Yes.
Did he put a sort of time on it? Was it as a child as well?
I know he had some issues when he was younger with ghosts. But of course, children at 5 or 6 years old are scared of ghosts. But from my recollection, it was his teenage years that he really began to suffer.
Thank you.
He told you all this in a letter.
He did. I still have the letter.
By 2000 or 2001, you tell us that you became aware of further aspects of his thinking and his mental health, in that he said to you again that he was speaking to ghosts.
Yes.
And that he would say that the dog was talking to spirits in the house, in the home.
Correct, although he believed that, so on one occasion the dog was at the top of the stairs and wouldn't come downstairs, and he said it was because there was a spirit there, which I just laughed.
I want to ask you about that, because in terms of laughing, at the time I don't think you recognised these in particular as significant mental health issues. Is that fair?
I mean, I was 20 years old.
Yes.
And you've got to remember it was also 1998, 99.
Yes.
Mental health wasn't discussed the way it is now.
No, in the same way that we've talked a little about the lack of recognition at that time or earlier about domestic violence.
Yes.
In the landscape of July 1998, that isn't something, and you were 20, as you've pointed out, that would have been at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah. As a general, Mark was just Mark. He was funny, he was kind, he took on my 2 children as his own, he worked hard. There were just these little blips which
Yes.
I didn't understand. I was a child.
Yes.
And I don't
ahead.
think he understood either.
No. You also tell us that as far as you understand it, Mark's first contact with mental health services came in around May 2002, by which time Mark had come under the care of SEPT's Community Drug and Alcohol Service.
Yes.
We'll call that CDAS. Is that what you normally say?
Yes.
Now, taking it in summary, we now know that in the period between 2002 and 2007, Mark had 4 separate episodes of drug treatment under CDAS.
He did, yes.
And I think, did that include 2 inpatient rehabilitation stays, or were those additional?
I believe it included.
And those were both in 2006?
No, so he had a period of detoxification and then went on to an actual rehabilitation unit.
I see.
In 2006, and then I think it was around 2008 that he had the second detoxification and a very short spell in rehab.
Thank you. I think it's important to note, and you tell us this elsewhere in your statement, living through this, you were aware throughout that time that he wanted to be abstinent from drugs.
Absolutely.
That he worked incredibly hard to make it so.
Yes.
I understand that in May 2009, following a relapse, Mark was assessed by CDAS and that at that stage he requested emotional and psychological support.
He did, yes.
And we're going to come on to talk more about this time period, but actually I think it's important to note that between that date, so following that assessment on the 1st of May 2009 and the 25th of June 2012, Mark was in continual care under CDAS.
He was on their books. I wouldn't say he was cared for.
I understand.
But
so
he was under their
listed
service.
as,
Yes.
could we put it in that way?
Yes.
He was listed as under the care of CDAS throughout that period.
Yes.
And as we'll come to see, he was discharged from that service on the 25th of June 2012.
He was.
Sally, the period we're going to come on to look at in detail is between 2011, throughout 2011 and running up to September 2012. But I want to just cover in short what happened between that relapse and the assessment with CDAS in May 2009 and the beginning of 2011. So just a couple of key events that I would like to note. Your recollection, you tell us, of Mark's mental health in 2009 was that there was quite a significant deterioration at that time.
There was, yes.
I'm looking, if you want to look at it and you don't need to go to it, at page 13 of your witness statement and paragraph 55.
Yes.
You tell us there that he went back into rehabilitation at that time, and in particular about his symptoms is that he was hearing voices
Yes.
and exhibiting extreme paranoia.
Extreme paranoia.
As an example, you tell us that he was utterly convinced that an elderly lady who lived opposite you at the time was watching him or was a threat to him of some kind.
No, that she had armed police sitting in her bathroom, which the window faced directly onto Mark's property, and obviously had the frosted glass, but that there were armed police watching him through that window.
You say that that paranoia was continuous.
Continuous.
When he left the house, he would walk around in circles rather than going straight to where he wanted to go.
Yes.
And when he was driving, he would drive deliberately onto a dead-end street, and both of those things he did because he believed that someone was following him.
Yes. Yes.
During 2010, I understand that Mark overdosed twice.
He did.
In October 2010, following a criminal conviction for drug possession, he started a 12-month probation order. And as I understand it, that included in particular a 6-month drug rehabilitation requirement.
Yes.
And that was supervised by one of the agencies you've listed, and that was the Westminster Drugs Project.
They were the ones that took the drug tests, but it would have been ordered by probation.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
They
so
would have been the offender managers.
I understand. So under the supervision of probation services, but the drug rehab part of it provided by...
Yes.
Thank you, Westminster. And the other matter that I want to note is that I think in around Christmas, at around Christmas time in 2010, Mark's father became very ill. Is that right?
Yes.
I mention those matters and take you through them because one of the very most major points that you want to raise, I think, is around discrimination in services against those who have issues with substance misuse.
Absolutely.
If I could take you, please, to page 6 of your witness statement and to paragraph 27. I think there you summarise what is the most substantial outstanding question in your mind. Was it the case that the agencies, particularly SEPT, A&E and Essex Police, did not adequately assess or diagnose Mark for mental health issues because they simply saw him as a drug addict.
Absolutely. I would actually like to read that paragraph, if it's okay.
Please do so. Read the entire paragraph, because, Sally, it's a good summary of the major point that you want to make.
So the question was it the case that the agencies, particularly SEPT, A&E and Essex Police, did not adequately assess, diagnose Mark for mental health issues because they simply saw him as a drug addict? For 2 days, Mark was in a psychotic episode in his bedroom and he had no help from anyone. Nobody sane would calmly sit down, hold a sawn-off shotgun under their chin and pull the trigger. This was the result of Mark's desperate pleas to be helped, to be treated, to be hospitalised by the statutory organisations that should have supported and protected not only him, but his mum, me, my children and the wider public. Instead, he was repeatedly ignored. Basic safeguarding processes and multidisciplinary team approaches failed.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, you talk about discrimination against him, and discrimination has lots of ways of manifesting itself.
Yes.
We don't have to have people actually saying, we're not going to treat you because you're a drug addict. How do you feel it mostly manifested itself? Was it simply just being ignored when he called or you called for help?
It was and continues to be, in my opinion, that practitioners will hear drugs being involved and simply use that as a scapegoat, rather than looking deeper at what is behind the drugs, whether the person is self-medicating. As soon as they hear Class A, then the treatment is non-existent.
Thank you.
It's very judgmental.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the ways I think that you might say, and you must correct me if I'm wrong, in which you saw that discrimination manifesting itself was that at no stage, at no time did Mark receive a formal diagnosis of any mental illness.
No, he didn't.
This was despite his and your repeated pleas for help.
Yes. He even suggested, I don't know where the suggestion of a personality disorder came from.
Yes.
But he would state that he had a personality disorder. It's noted in his medical records.
Yes, it is. We'll come to that, Sally. I think it was never given as a formal diagnosis, but instead it was suggested in a SEPT letter that we'll come to, that he had symptoms that might suggest a borderline personality disorder. Now, to put it in context, and we're going to come to these events, but there was never any diagnosis despite your and his repeated pleas for help, and those included circumstances in which you describe him as being floridly psychotic.
Not only do I describe him as floridly psychotic, but psychiatrists did as well.
Yes.
But there were events where Mark snapped out of it. He didn't know what he had done.
Yes.
His eyes changed. The way he held himself changed. So, yeah, it's the only way that I can understand that was a florid psychotic episode, in that it was almost an out-of-body experience.
Yes, and we'll come to those events, but there were at least 2 occasions where you witnessed an episode of that kind, and you also witnessed him in the immediate aftermath.
Yes.
Not appearing to recognise or realise what had just taken place.
Absolutely, he didn't understand.
There were also a number of occasions amongst both your and his pleas for help where Mark explained to frontline services that he was hearing voices,
Yes.
that he had uncontrollable rage,
Yes.
and that he feared he would harm those closest to him.
Yes. Can I also add
Please
that
do.
he also told them that he was half human, half intergalactic being.
Yes.
He also told them that he was the son of God,
Yes.
and that he believed aliens were watching him, and they manifested as actors, and that they at one stage wanted to kill him, but now they just watch him because they found him interesting. Those are the things that he disclosed to numerous practitioners.
Yes. In addition, he made specific threats to harm or kill you,
He did.
and those you reported to Essex Police. We'll come to those.
Yes.
None of the threats that he made, do you consider, were taken seriously?
Not by anybody. No. Actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
There was one agency that took it seriously, and that was probation. I cannot fault his offender manager.
Thank you.
But every other agency, no, they were very dismissive.
You consider, having looked through the records and analysed the records, as well as having lived this, that there are a number of possible diagnoses
Yes.
that were available on the basis of the symptoms with which Mark presented.
Yes.
You don't need to go to them unless you want to, but you list those possible diagnoses at page 6 in paragraph 29 of your witness statement.
Yes.
And you say that those include BPD, borderline personality disorder,
Yep.
schizophrenia,
Yes.
and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Absolutely.
You can turn to it if you would like to, Sally. I'm just looking in particular at page 67 and paragraph 166 of your witness statement. We have covered this, but I want to make clear that you do consider that the main reason that Mark was not assisted with his mental health was because of the stigma, prejudice and discrimination against his substance misuse.
Yes.
You consider that that prejudice was and remains pervasive in the healthcare sector.
I do.
You feel that it was the failure to treat Mark's mental health adequately or at all that led both to his death and to his mother's death.
Yes. And actually his brother as well.
Tell us about that.
So Mark's brother was left homeless when Mark and his mum died.
Yes.
He was left to deal with his baby brother murdering his mum.
Yes.
And then dying himself. Their father had died the year before, so he didn't have any support at all. Lee became a rough sleeper in Basildon with horrendous addiction issues.
Yes.
And Lee died as a rough sleeper in an alleyway in Basildon some years later. And I strongly believe that it was due to Mark and their mother dying that left Lee in the situation that he was in. So actually it's actually taken 3 people.
Yes.
How old was he when he died? Do you know?
42, about 42, I think.
Yeah.
I had to bury him as well.
Yeah, a young man. Yeah.
There was no other family.
Thank you. One of the other things I want to note before we start to look at some of the assessments that did take place and some of the missed opportunities to treat Mark's mental health is that you tell us that one of the major connected issues is that because of the absence of a mental health diagnosis, SEPT's dual diagnosis policy was never triggered.
No, it wasn't.
Now, you must correct me, I'll summarise what that would have done. I think it's fair to say that you consider that had that dual diagnosis policy been triggered, that would have triggered a number of other procedures and protections according to SEPT's own policies.
It would have recognised him as a vulnerable person in
Yes.
his own right, just from the dual diagnosis policy being triggered.
Yes. It would have identified him as an individual with complex needs.
Yes.
It would have sort of, if I can put it in this way, flagged him with different agencies as vulnerable and a person with comorbidities and complex needs that might have connected services in a way that never occurred.
Yes.
It also would have meant that at certain points in 2011 and 2012, the fact of the dual diagnosis would have been noted and raised at relevant, crucial points.
I believe so.
One of the things you tell us about the treatment of psychosis, or a person who presents with psychotic symptoms, if you want to look at it, Sally, it's at page 64 and paragraph 154 of your witness statement.
Yes.
You say there, I believe that psychosis should be treated regardless of whether it is organic or non-organic.
Yes.
Help us, please, with what you mean by that and why you believe that that is so important.
So my experience as a professional is that someone with substance misuse issues, if they present as having psychosis, that the general way of thinking is that it's drug-induced psychosis, and that if the person just stops taking drugs for a couple of days, that the psychosis will stop. However, what medical practitioners are asking is for somebody to have psychosis for 2 days or 3 days and to be left with those symptoms. I believe that regardless of where the psychosis stems from, that it should be treated appropriately, whether that is with antipsychotic medication, whether that is with the early intervention team, whether it's hospitalisation.
Yes.
It doesn't matter where psychosis comes from, you are psychotic and a risk to yourself and the wider public.
Thank you. I'd like to move, please, to some of the events from the beginning of 2011 and to focus in particular as we go through this chain of events, and I think it'll become clear to those listening, to focus on the missed opportunities to catch him and to treat what was happening for him.
Yes.
Are you happy to go ahead?
Yeah.
Now, in summary, you and your legal team have done a count, and I've done my own, and Sally, my maths is not good, but between us we come to certainly more than 20 occasions on which Mark presented with severe symptoms requesting assistance with his mental health.
Yes, and that was in the last couple of years of his life. That wasn't spanned out over his adult life. That
Indeed. That's during the period of January 2011
Yes.
until September 2012.
Yes, more than 20.
Yes. I'm going to start, please, in January 2011. And Sally, I'm keenly aware that some of this evidence is incredibly distressing for you. I'm going to take you through some of these events. You must feel free to stop me or correct me or tell me that you want to expand on something as I'm doing that, all right? So I'm turning first to page 15 of your witness statement, just so that you can orientate yourself, and to paragraph 57.
Yes.
On the 6th of January 2011, Mark had come to your home to see your children and you were not present.
No.
You later learned, I think the next day you learned, that he had frightened the children by telling them first that Wi-Fi was a police tracking device.
That my particular router
I see.
that was on the windowsill in our lounge was a police tracking device.
And that you were trying to have him killed.
Yes.
You didn't know that when you arrived home.
No.
Because the children didn't tell you until afterwards, so you agreed to drive Mark back to his home.
I did, yes.
He began to behave strangely during the course of that journey,
He did.
and then as you approached his driveway, I understand that he dragged you out of the car and attempted to strangle you with both hands whilst kneeling over you.
He did. He dragged me from the driver's seat through the passenger seat
Yes.
and out of the passenger door by my throat.
Now, this is one of the incidents where you tell us that when he backed away and you were on the floor, I'm sorry, I think trying to find your glasses because you knew that you wouldn't be able to drive without them,
Yes.
you looked up and saw him standing a short distance away.
Yes, he had moved to behind his gate. There was a fenced-off area before his driveway.
Yes.
And he called me babe and asked what had happened, and why was I crying, and looked very confused. At that moment in time, I didn't understand actually what was happening,
Yes.
and I thought he was just teasing me. So I hurled a load of abuse at him.
Yes.
And jumped in my car and drove off.
Thank you. The next day, you made a report to police.
I did. So I got home and my oldest two children had come downstairs and they had seen that I had ripped clothes, sticks in my hair, mud.
Yes.
I told the children that I'd fallen over.
Yes.
And between the four of them, they decided the next morning to tell me about the concerning behaviour that they had witnessed.
Yes.
It was after that I made the decision, and after speaking to some very close friends as well, that I made the decision that I needed to report him to the police.
Yes.
Because we were under the impression that he would get a mental health assessment.
Yes.
And I wanted him to go to prison to get help.
Yes. Your principal purpose in making that report was to get mental health help
Yes.
for him.
Yes.
I understand that, in fact, any assault charges were dropped, but that on the 11th of January, Mark was served with a non-molestation order.
He was.
He breached it the same day.
He breached it before the gentleman that served it had even got in the car.
I see. And as far as you know, and this is a major outstanding question in your mind, no mental health assessment was carried out at that time?
No.
If we turn, please, to page 16. I'm moving now, please, to the 27th of January, 2011. And we're looking in this part of your witness statement on page 16 and at paragraph 63 at a section of the DHR.
Yes.
And what that tells us is that on that date, Mark saw probation services
Yes.
and told staff there that an agency was visiting him and that he thought they wanted to kill him.
Yes.
Notably, his drug tests were negative.
Yes.
On the same day, he told staff at Westminster Drugs Project that people were following him, and I think this was, you referred to it earlier, that people were actors.
Yes.
The officer at Westminster Drugs Project recorded his presentation as elusive and recorded that he appeared to be psychotic.
Yes.
Moving down the page, we can see that there was a referral to the Criminal Justice Mental Health Team.
Yes.
I'm going to call that CJMHT, by probation services as a result of that visit. Is that right? If you look at paragraph 65.
Yeah, no, I can see, but I'm also looking at paragraph 64.
Yes.
Which is of the same date.
Yes. Tell us about that.
So on the 31st of January 2011, Mark attended the local accident and emergency department, stating that he was unwell.
Yes.
And that he believed his father and brother were spiking his food or drink. He had attended the department many times and was referred to a SEPT duty psychiatrist.
Yes.
He was allowed to leave without treatment.
Yes. So again, the same day that probation had been concerned enough to record that he appeared to be psychotic.
Yes.
And made a referral to the Criminal Justice Mental Health Team,
Yes.
Mark himself had presented at A&E.
He had.
Explaining these matters and had been sent away without treatment.
Yes.
Following the referral to the Criminal Justice Mental Health Team, a mental health assessment took place on the 16th of February 2011.
Yes.
And you tell us about that on page 17 of your witness statement at paragraph 67.
Yes.
Now, the result of that, a number of things were noted about Mark's presentation on that day, but the result of that was that it was noted, well, it's at the bottom of that paragraph, the assessment and diagnosis, or the conclusion, I shouldn't use the word diagnosis because it wasn't one, was that he appeared floridly psychotic and needs urgent review by a psychiatrist.
Yes.
He would consider admission or medication.
Yes.
The plan then was for Mark to be seen at court at Southend on the 21st of February.
Yes. Which I'd just like to say, I have concerns that somebody was left from the 16th of February until the 21st of February with a mental health professional concluding that he was floridly psychotic.
Yes.
And he was left for that amount of time.
With, as far as you are aware and as far as you have been able to discover in the notes, no plan in place for that interim period?
Absolutely nothing. There was no crisis team, no early intervention, no medication, no follow-up.
Just a plan for him to see the psychiatrist at court on the 21st?
To get himself from Basildon to Southend whilst with those symptoms.
Yes. In fact, one of the things that Mark had said to the assessing community psychiatric nurse on the 16th was that he felt that if things carried on as they were at present, he may seriously harm someone.
He did indeed, yes.
He described his mind as being like a tornado.
Yes.
And it was noted in that assessment that Mark had a history of self-neglect, self-harm, suicidal ideation, and attempts.
It did, yes.
I think the other question in your mind, you must correct me if I'm wrong about that particular assessment, is that the community psychiatric nurse concluded that a full Mental Health Act assessment with a view to admission was not appropriate at that time.
Yeah, I do not understand how it was not appropriate to complete a Mental Health Act assessment.
Yes.
Were you seeing him at this stage?
At this stage, no, because I had the non-molestation order out against him.
If you turn the page, please, Sally, you don't need to look at it actually because it's set out in the DHR. But what was also recorded, what you've done very helpfully in your witness statement, and I think this is to emphasise the complexity and sort of duplication of the many forms
Yes.
that were filled out following every assessment. One of the forms in the medical records, and this is towards the bottom of paragraph 69, that Mark had no previous contact with secondary mental health services apart from CDAS since 2002, and that probation services had recorded their view that he was a possible risk to others at that time,
Yes.
as well as a possible risk to his children if he had access to them at that time.
Yes.
The summary of needs reads urgent assessment of mental state.
It does.
Could we look, please, at page 20 and at paragraph 73? Here
Yes.
you are telling us about the information in a summary sheet prepared by the same assessing CPN from the
Yes.
16th of February. And what you tell us there at the bullet points is that 2 matters have been flagged under diagnosis and conditions.
Yes.
One of those is disorders due to drug use, and the other is schizophrenia.
Yes.
Do you have any idea, sitting here now and having had the benefit of looking through the records, whether that possible diagnosis was ever followed up at any time? Do you know?
I don't believe it was. If it had been, then DF11 and DF20 would have allowed the dual diagnosis policy to have been triggered.
Exactly. Thank you. If we come on then to the plan, which was that Mark would be seen by a psychiatrist at court on the 21st, we know that that did take place.
Yes.
And you tell us about this at page 21 and paragraph 76 of your witness statement. In the first line, the DHR summarises it in this way: the outcome of the mental health assessment completed on the 16th of February, this is by the psychiatrist at court, was that Mark was floridly psychotic and expressing bizarre ideas.
Yes.
Moving 2 paragraphs further down from there, we see this. It was concluded that Mark required an urgent review by a criminal justice mental health team consultant psychiatrist. That's the one he was then having, I'm so sorry. This psychiatrist concluded that Mark was clearly mentally unwell, paranoid, and probably psychotic.
Yes.
He told Mark that he needed a low dose of antipsychotic medication and that either the CDAS consultant psychiatrist or his GP could prescribe that for him.
Yes.
Now, first of all, that never occurred, am I right?
As far as I'm aware.
Secondly, after that assessment and those conclusions, no one made any contact with Mark for a week.
That's correct.
If you look at paragraph 77, please, and I think...
Sorry, can
No,
we just go back? I do
Of course, go back.
apologise.
No, don't apologise.
You said that no contact was made with Mark for a week, although discussions were ongoing between CDAS and CJMHT as
Yes.
to which agency would provide a prescription for Mark.
Yes,
This just demonstrates the flaws in the system, the complexities of their forms, their recording system.
yes.
And
the
it's
lines of responsibility about
Yeah.
who should be doing what.
I was just about to say, it was like a tennis match. No, you do it, you do it, you do it.
Yes.
But nobody was doing it.
And in the end, no one did.
No, nobody.
One of the things that I think you have a number of questions over, and in fact, just for your benefit, on this point, you've highlighted it in bold at paragraph 77. What the notes show is that when the psychiatrist at court's conclusion was discussed with the coordinator at CDAS,
Yes.
that coordinator declined to ask the CDAS consultant psychiatrist to see Mark. And you said, stating that, and this is the reason for declining,
Yes.
CDAS and that doctor, that psychiatrist, do not have any involvement with mental illness symptoms.
Yes.
Do you understand that, Sally?
No. Why would you have a psychiatrist? So I just want to correct you on something you say.
Please do. Always correct me.
Coordinator, which coordinator would lead someone to think that that's a position within the team.
Yes.
It was actually Mark's care coordinator.
I'm sorry.
So his duty was to coordinate Mark's care.
Thank you.
And it was that person that declined. He was a psychiatric nurse.
Yes.
Working for the Drug and Alcohol Service, CDAS.
Yes.
And it was the psychiatrist, the CDAS psychiatrist, that he said didn't have any involvement with mental illness symptoms. Why on earth would you have psychiatric nurses and psychiatrists working for a service that does not deal with mental illness?
Yes. What would their purpose there be?
Exactly.
Now, by the 28th of February, so we know we've established that no contact with Mark took place for a week, and by the 28th of February, in fact, Mark made contact with the Criminal Justice Mental Health team and was threatening to hurt himself or others if he did not get some help.
Yes.
Talking about the complexities that you've described, CJMHT then contacted CDAS.
Yes.
And the CDAS manager, and you've highlighted it in bold there in the third paragraph of page 22, the CDAS manager stated, CDAS do not carry cases that require mental health input.
Absolutely.
In the event, I understand that the CDAS psychiatrist did agree, eventually, after all this toing and froing, to see Mark as an emergency medical review. Is that right?
Yes.
And if we go, please, to page 24 of your witness statement, we can see what the CDAS psychiatrist concluded, which was that there was no evidence of any mental unwellness.
Yes.
He was considered to be cooperative, clear and lucid with good insight, no psychosis, no plans for self-harm or aggression, and had said, I just want to be left alone.
Yes.
Following being told, because I understand that he was told, that there was no evidence of any mental illness, on that same night, I understand that Mark took an overdose of amitriptyline and heroin.
He did, yes.
Sally, you are able to tell us, I think, and you must put it in your own words, please, that was Mark's reaction to being told that there was nothing wrong with him.
Yes.
Because he himself knew that to be untrue. He knew it to be otherwise.
He did, yes. He knew he was on a knife's edge. He knew that he was a risk.
Yes.
He knew that there was something wrong with him.
Yes.
And so I believe that he felt that was his only option.
Yes. We may come back to this, but we see that the CDAS consultant psychiatrist, as I've just read, recorded Mark saying, I just want to be left alone. Do you consider that what Mark might have said to that psychiatrist was taken at face value?
Absolutely. When you look at the presenting issues that he went to the psychiatrist with,
Yes.
you imagine saying to someone over and over and over again,
Yes.
being told someone would contact you and they wouldn't.
Yes.
And it was almost like a wild animal going and curling up under a bush to die. And that's how I believe Mark felt, was just, you're not doing anything for me, just leave me alone.
Yes.
Just let me deal with it.
And I think it is your view, I think it is your strong view, and you might put it differently, that by that stage, those kinds of comments, I just want to be left alone, should not have been taken at face value, particularly given what the psychiatrist at court had concluded on the 21st.
Absolutely. Can I also draw you back to page 23?
Please do.
Was it 23 or 22? Yeah, sorry, it's page 22, almost halfway down the page at 12:10, telephone call to the crisis team, who agreed to find a bed on the assessment unit, and if it was felt he required admission, when seen this afternoon, could be admitted.
Yes.
So the fact that those steps had been taken,
Yes.
because his presentation was such that you know, they had secured him a bed,
Yes, it was felt necessary to do so.
that in a couple of hours he was absolutely tip-top and no sign of mental health. I struggle to believe that's true.
Yes. You also struggle, I think, to understand why more was not done to look at what might underlie a man in those circumstances saying, I just want to be left alone.
Absolutely. When you look at the history of you know, suicidal ideation, self-harming,
Yes.
why would someone with those presentations want to be left alone? That would raise, as a professional to me, that would raise a huge safeguarding and welfare concern.
Yes. Thank you. If we go back, please, to page 24 and about the middle of the page, we know that having taken an overdose on the night of the 28th, after that assessment with the CDAS psychiatrist, Mark was not seen again by any professional until the 3rd of March, so 3 days later.
Yeah.
And on that date, Mark attended CDAS, the Westminster Drugs Project, and probation services.
Yes.
And essentially to all three, he reported again that he feared that he was going to hurt himself or someone else.
Yes.
The agreement reached, between CDAS and Mark was that he would go straight to A&E
Indeed.
in order to see the SEPT duty psychiatrist.
Yes.
He did so.
He did.
He explained to the SEPT duty psychiatrist the same things, that he was suicidal, that he felt he was going to explode, that he hadn't been able to control his rages since the age of 15, that he felt he may hurt somebody, and in particular, that he was asking for help because he didn't want to hurt anyone.
Absolutely.
The conclusion of that, Sally...
Sorry, can we go back to...
Please
because
do.
I think it's really important
Yes,
that,
you
that
tell
we
me.
include. He said that he had a breakdown,
Yes,
and that 1 minute he was crying and getting angry, and then he feels numb afterwards,
yes,
which would demonstrate the pattern that I had witnessed of him not understanding the numbness afterwards. Also, he was demonstrating clear PTSD symptoms, stating that he was having flashbacks of his father physically abusing his mother, of being bullied as a child, and of his experience of being beaten up in prison and being stabbed by his neighbour.
yes.
Clear PTSD symptoms.
The SEPT duty psychiatrist diagnosed anger and depression and sent him back to his GP. Is that fair?
He did, yes. Can I just say, though, that even
Please
if
do.
that diagnosis
Yes.
of anger and depression was correct, that does not mean that he did not warrant hospitalisation or the crisis team with what he was self-disclosing to that practitioner. He still should have been treated for those symptoms that he was describing, regardless of how they wanted to present it.
Yes.
Or write it up. He should have been treated in some form. I'm not saying just put someone in hospital.
Yes.
But there could have been crisis team support. There could have been medication.
Yes.
There wasn't. They discharged him or advised him to go to his GP.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to come back to the SEPT letter that we've spoken about. I just want to move, please, to page 23 and to the middle of the page. Now, moving forward from the 3rd to the 8th of March, there we see that just 5 days later, a message was received that Mark had been contacting his probation officer, making threats to himself and others if he didn't get help.
Yes.
Crucially, we see this. Also, telephone message via contact centre saying Mark now wished to be admitted.
Yes.
He was given an appointment for the next day, I think, was the result of that call.
Yes. Why would you leave anyone overnight wishing to be admitted?
Yes. If we go, please, to the 9th of March, where an assessment did take place. If we look at this, please, at page 25, paragraph 80 of your witness statement.
Yeah.
The record here, and I think this was again carried out by a community psychiatric nurse, this assessment on the 9th of March, tells us this in the second line: preoccupied with his anger problems and the need for medication to calm him down.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that note, please, Sally?
Dismissive. Mark had been told that he had psychosis and that required a low-level antipsychotic.
Yes.
And so saying preoccupied with his anger problems and the need for medication to calm him down, he was just reiterating in layman's terms what he had been told by this criminal justice psychiatrist.
Yes.
This feeds into the discrimination that I've spoken about previously.
Yes.
It wasn't taken seriously. Just very dismissive, downplayed.
Thank you. In fact, if we turn the page, please, and if you look at page 26, we can see that 6 or 7 lines down, what that CPN has recorded is substance misuse issues may have presented psychotic symptoms due to those drug-induced factors.
Yes.
So there we see that record that a CPN is noting that the psychosis that had been witnessed by the psychiatrist at court on the 21st, in the view of this assessing CPN on the 9th of March, might simply have been drug-induced.
I mean, there is that, but what I'd also like to sort of draw attention to is that the Westminster Drug Project and probation was still involved with Mark.
Yes.
He was still under a drug treatment order through the court, and a simple drug test would have advised whether it was drug-induced psychosis or psychosis. However, it was still psychosis, regardless of where it stemmed from.
Yes. Thank you. And I think, in fact, we don't need to go to it, but I think, in fact, as part of that DRR, the drug rehabilitation requirement, Mark was required to carry out drug tests periodically, and over that period, many of those returns were negative.
Yes.
As you say, that would have assisted this CPN, rather than guessing that they may be, or assuming might be a better way to put it, that those psychotic symptoms were drug-induced. First of all, some concrete evidence could have answered that either way. And secondly, in your mind, it shouldn't have mattered what had induced the psychosis. It required treatment.
Yes.
If you go over to page 27, and the final paragraph of that page, this is from the DHR report, and that again repeats this idea that had been concluded or assumed by the CPN on the 9th of March at that assessment. The MHS IMR reports that the psychotic symptoms described at the initial assessment could have been induced by illicit substances. And the DHR goes on to summarise what has been said about the fact that drug-induced psychosis can look or present like schizophrenia. Again, to you, first of all, that could have been established.
Yes.
And secondly, not relevant to whether or not the individual requires treatment.
Absolutely.
We also note that that form, if you look at paragraph 82,
Yes.
alongside making an assumption that any psychotic symptoms could have been drug-induced, details a recent history of violence against others, currently facing charges of violence, appeared to have paranoid and other delusions, as well as possible distortion of perceptions. Now, to you, those facts alone should have raised safety issues. Is that fair?
Absolutely, yes.
In fact, just to note, Sally, we don't need to go to it, but your point about the drug tests and the fact that Mark was under the care or was still under a DRR at the time, if you look at the fourth paragraph on page 30 of your witness statement, the records show, and this is noted in the DHR, that Mark first started presenting with what are described here as bizarre symptoms on the 27th of January, and was still presenting with symptoms suggesting psychosis on the 21st of February,
Yes.
which is when the psychiatrist saw him at court. 7 of the twice-weekly drug tests conducted in February 2011, there were 7, and of those, only 2 provided a positive result for opiates.
Yes.
So all of this could have been established.
Absolutely. If there'd been a multidisciplinary approach.
Thank you. The DHR also says, and this is important, there is no explanation relating to these contradictions and their relevance to the diagnosis of drug-induced psychosis.
Yes.
I think if we move just 2 days forward, please, to the 10th of March, on that date, and you've spoken highly of probation services and Mark's offender manager in particular.
Yes.
On that day, Mark told his probation manager that the criminal justice mental health team had told him he was not mentally ill but had a personality disorder.
Yes.
And we think that came from the CPN who had assessed him.
Yes, I believe so.
We'll come to the letter in a moment. At that time, Mark told his offender manager at probation services that he was very interested in a period in rehab.
Yes.
And just looking at page 28, please. No, in fact, we won't come to that. I'm so sorry. I want to just go. Yes, it is page 28. On the 17th of March.
Yes.
Mark reported that he was boiling inside.
Yeah.
And trying to provoke an incident.
Yes.
To you, I think this is clear deterioration and the beginning of a loss of control of his symptoms.
Yes, I also have, knowing Mark the way that I did, the fact that he tried to provoke an incident with his neighbours would have led to his arrest and ultimately him being kept safe.
And he would have known that?
Yes, yes.
Moving to page 29, on the 23rd of March 2011, Mark told his probation officer or his offender manager, in very plain terms, that he wanted help with his mental illness.
Yes.
And it's noted there that he said to his offender manager that he had lied to mental health practitioners in the past.
Yes.
What do you understand that to be a reference to saying, I'm fine, leave me
Yes.
alone?
Yeah.
By the 28th of March, again on page 29 if you want to look at it, Mark underwent a medical review at CDAS.
He did.
It's the 4th paragraph down. That review recorded no physical or mental health concerns, but also records that Mark admitted at that stage to using heroin to top up his methadone prescription.
Yep.
And that he was binging on diazepam.
Yes.
He was advised to cease his use of diazepam or withdraw from it. And I understand that at that medical review, his methadone prescription or the dosage was increased.
It should have been, yes.
Thinking about the way in which Mark presented, on the 30th of March 2011, he attended a GP appointment and was diagnosed then with an anxiety disorder.
Yeah. But I believe that was by a GP who has experience in general practice.
Yes.
Not specific mental health.
Yes. And from what we can see from the DHR, the conversation there appears to have been around his use of diazepam.
Yeah, everybody continued to prescribe it to him.
Yes. So the GP was initially prescribing diazepam, I think, for back pain.
Yes.
He was prescribed diazepam on at least one occasion by other services.
By the psychiatrist for CDAS.
Thank you. And nobody cross-checked that everybody wasn't prescribing diazepam to the same individual.
No. Again, no communication, no multidisciplinary approach.
Thank you. Sally, I understand we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
I think as long as you are content, this might be a good time for us to take, perhaps, Chair, a 15-minute break.
15 minutes.
Thank you.
15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally, I want to move through fairly shortly some of the other events and missed opportunities in 2011 and into 2012 to ensure that you have time to raise all of the key failings that you want to make clear to this inquiry. We had landed just before the break in around March 2011, and Mark had been to a GP appointment, that GP having mentioned an anxiety disorder. We also know that Mark presented at A&E on the 31st of March and the 5th of April of 2011.
Yeah.
And I think you tell us that as far as you are aware, no plan or treatment arose from either of those visits to A&E.
Not that I've received in his records, no.
Thank you. I want to note also that on the 4th of July, Mark saw his care coordinator. That is the person we were discussing earlier, who you explain. If you want to look at it, it's on the second to last paragraph on page 29. That is the role you were describing earlier, the person with responsibility, quite literally, for coordinating his care.
Yes.
And the DHR notes there that this was the first time Mark had seen that person since January 2011.
Yes.
If we look at page 30, 4 paragraphs up from the bottom, the DHR concludes that there was a lack of continuity in his care coordination, I think you might put it a little more strongly, and confirms there that there was a period of approximately 6 months where Mark did not see his care coordinator at all.
Yeah.
It notes that during that time, as we have covered, Mark had 2 mental health assessments, 4 attendances at A&E, an overdose, a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder from the GP, reported that he had been told he had a personality disorder, and in particular, and perhaps most crucially, had repeatedly stated that he would hurt himself or others if he did not get help.
Yes. Can we also include that his father's health had rapidly declined and that he was terminally ill with stomach cancer?
Let's come straight on to that. I think Mark's father died on the 26th of July 2011.
Around then, yes.
Both probation services and CDAS were aware that
Yes.
Mark's father had died. You believe, I think, that his mental health deteriorated very significantly after that event or at that time. And if you look, please, at page 31 and at paragraph 87, again, this is from the DHR report, that tells us at the start of paragraph 87 that high-risk trigger events essentially should be managed through increased levels of care coordination.
Yes.
And if you go down a paragraph, and there's a section that in fact you've highlighted in bold, the DHR notes that with the exception of counselling sessions that Mark attended starting in May 2011, there is little evidence of structured psychosocial interventions after January 2011, which appears to be, for all of the reasons we've just noted, the very period when Mark was most in need of support.
Yes.
Moving through to September, in the next paragraph on page 31, Mark self-referred to the Family Mosaic floating support service.
Yes.
And again asked for help with a referral to mental health services.
He did, yeah.
On the 19th of September, he asked for the counselling he had received to restart, and there's no evidence that that request was actioned or that anything was done.
No.
We come next, please, to the 22nd of December, when Mark was arrested following an affray in the street. Both he and his neighbour were stabbed.
Yes.
While in police custody, because of the way in which he was presenting, Mark was referred to the Criminal Justice Mental Health Team.
He was, yes.
As I understand it, the Criminal Justice Mental Health Team, CPN, contacted CDAS,
Yes.
who said, no, we've got no mental health concerns about this man.
Yes, they said that he was compliant with his methadone.
Yes?
And that there were no concerns.
If you look over, please, at the note made of that assessment in the second paragraph on page 33, there we see similar records. During interview, Mark was oriented to time, person and place. There was no evidence of thought disorder or any psychotic illness, other than an odd idea of being investigated by the police.
Yes.
That is the very idea that you had told us about that stemmed from 2009 and onwards. He denied any thoughts of self-harm, stating that he had not done this since the age of 13.
Indeed.
Now, the records would demonstrate that to be untrue because we have been through other records that show a history of ideation and attempts and overdoses.
Yes.
He stated that he has a split personality, and the notes say that when asked to describe this during this assessment on the 23rd of December, he simply said that he becomes very angry.
Yes.
If you go down a few lines, please, and just thinking through some of what you have told us about the way in which Mark presented and the states you saw him in. Do you remember you described him, and we talked about him going numb?
Yes.
just 2/3 of the way down that second paragraph, we see this. Throughout the interview, Mark presented as very emotionless.
Yes.
When describing the knife incident, he very calmly told us of the wound that he inflicted on the other person.
Yes.
He stated towards the end of that paragraph that he has waited 8 years in the past for revenge.
Indeed. Can I also remind you of when Mark's clothing was removed from him for forensic evidence?
Yes.
It was only then that anybody was aware that Mark actually had a stab wound to his stomach, which he hadn't reported.
Yes.
And that aligns with psychosis or personality disorder in that he didn't realise that he had actually been stabbed, and it was only because of the removal of his clothing for forensic analysis that this was discovered. He wasn't in any pain.
He showed no signs of pain until that point.
Absolutely not.
Officers had attended and arrested him, but
Yes.
were unaware that he was injured.
Yes.
Thank you. Despite all of those matters, the recommendation was that there was no need for admission under the Mental Health Act,
Yes.
and the conclusion was that Mark was not suffering from any mental illness.
Indeed. However, I am slightly concerned that the letter to the court states, should he be remanded into custody, then the receiving prison should be aware of his medication and level of violence.
Yes.
Should the court require it, a full psychiatric report may be requested to ascertain if Mark is suffering from a personality disorder.
Yes.
Why wait for him to go to prison? Why would you not want that monitored in the community?
Indeed. Why would it be important for prison services to be aware of, but not important in the community?
Absolutely.
And if we look, please, at the third paragraph at the top of page 34, that letter states, there is no evidence to suggest that Mr. Tyler is detainable under the Mental Health Act. However, he is known to services previously where he was treated for a psychotic illness and did describe odd thoughts at assessment that could be somatic of psychosis.
Yes.
To you, I think that assessment on the 23rd of December was a very clear and obvious missed opportunity
Absolutely.
to properly assess and go on to treat Mark.
Again, it's the same culture of just passing him along to the prison services.
Yes. Thank you. If I can ask you to turn, please, to page 41 of your witness statement and to paragraph 100. We can see that on both the 25th and 27th of January, Mark requested a referral to mental health services, and that was through, I think, a family mosaic support worker.
Yes.
As is recorded there in the DHR, all the records show that those requests do not appear to have been progressed at all.
No.
In early February, you tell us in paragraph 101, you were so concerned for your safety because of Mark's actions and repeated breaches of the non-molestation order that was still in place, that you contacted both police and your own solicitor.
Yes, I was constantly in touch with my solicitor, sending her screenshots from my phone of threatening messages, sending photographs of him driving past my house.
Yes.
Because the police wouldn't listen. And I specifically said in one voicemail to her, which I'm sure she will confirm, that if he kills me, this is what has led to it.
Yes. As far as you are aware, you say here, nothing significant came of you reporting him for harassment on those occasions.
No.
And in fact, I think you are keen for this inquiry to find out why that was.
Absolutely.
We know that from other records that on the 8th of March 2012, acting on intelligence, police searched Mark's home
Yes.
and in particular were searching, as a result of that intelligence, for a sawn-off shotgun.
They were, yes.
Nothing was found.
No.
And if we turn, please, to page 42 and to paragraph 104, one of the key events, three sections down inside paragraph 104, is that at an appointment with CDAS on the 19th of April 2012, Mark reported that he had relapsed.
Yes.
And also reported that he was by then injecting heroin into his neck.
Yes.
If you look towards the bottom of page 42 under the heading Analysis, the DHR says this: there is no evidence of psychosocial interventions in addition to the treatment programme. His report that he was injecting into his neck was the most serious relapse he had reported since 2009.
Yes.
But as far as we can glean from the records, that disclosure by Mark and the seriousness of it led to no changes whatsoever to any aspect of his care.
Absolutely.
On the 2nd of June, moving please to page 43, and to the second paragraph on that page, you took the step of reporting Mark as a missing person.
I did, yes. He hadn't attended his mother's property for contact with the children, which was very unlike him.
You explained to officers when you made that report that he had undiagnosed mental health problems.
I did, yes.
And it's your understanding, I think, and the records show, that a welfare check was made. He was located.
He was, yes.
If you look, please, at page 45 and paragraph 112, Sally, you tell us there about the state Mark was in when located by police for that welfare check. Tell us about that, please.
So Mark had left his house fully clothed and had gone to go and get his electric key charged up.
Yes.
I believe he was found around Sunday morning at around 5 a.m. In his mother's field. There was a large field attached to the side of her property that she owned. He was wearing nothing but a pair of white Calvin Kleins and was... she got woken up by a noise that she said sounded like a wild animal, and it was him singing incoherently to the angels, and he was laying in the field. To this day, we don't know where his clothes, his shoes, or where he was in that time between him leaving his property on the Friday afternoon and him being found. He told the police that he was fine, and she told the police that she would look after him. So
I see.
They left him.
So just to be clear, the state that you've described with Mark in the field, that's the state in which police saw him.
Yes.
They nonetheless determined that the incident did not warrant contact with mental health services.
No.
Nor did they, and this is a point you will come on to highlight, give any consideration, as far as you are aware, to detaining him under Section 136.
No.
What was his relationship with his mother at that stage?
To my knowledge, because I wasn't in contact with Mark, but I was still in almost daily contact with Maureen, was that they were very close. He'd gone to go and stay with her. She was looking after him. In fact, on one occasion, I said he needs to be locked up, and she said, no, he just needs his mum. So there was never any, he was a mummy's boy, there was never any violence or negative relationship between him and his mum.
Thank you.
If we go, please, now to the 23rd of June and to your 999 call to the police. If you want to look at it, that's at page 43 in paragraph 105. And I understand that Mark approached you, if I can put it in that way, outside his mother's house when you had gone to collect the children.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened, please.
So I was always in constant contact with my children while they were with their dad in case anything happened. So
Yes.
as I got to the bottom of her road, it was a private road, by the way. There was only 4 houses on that property, on that road. I texted one of the children to say I was at the bottom of the road. They must have told him. I pulled up. He came running down the pathway. I had the window of my car on the driver's side slightly open because I was having a cigarette. And he just started trying to rip my car door open. He had a machete. He put his foot on either the front driver's wheel or the wheel arch to try and get leverage to pull my door open. I was on the phone to 999 the whole time. My children and his mum came running down. I managed to put the car between him and my children. I couldn't open the door at that time because it had the locks to open all doors.
Yes.
So if I'd opened the passenger door, then he would have got me out, and I didn't think it was fitting for my children to see him attack me.
Yes.
His mum put herself between him and myself. My daughter then screamed at him, and with that, it was almost, she screamed "Dad," and it was almost like a switch had been turned, and he just came out of it and looked around. He burst into tears. His mum was sort of shouting at the kids, "Get in the car, go, go, go."
Yeah.
I was still on the phone to 999 at this point. Mark at this stage had just looked around, cried and ran off.
Yes.
Again, it was, had no recollection. He didn't understand what had happened.
Yes.
Just that everyone was screaming and crying.
Yes. You say in your witness statement you realised very clearly then, I think, that he was having a psychotic episode.
Yes.
I understand that despite your 999 call to the police, while that incident was unfolding, in fact, police did not attend to speak to you about that incident until the next day.
I think it was 19 hours.
Thank you. 2 officers attended, and you explained in very clear terms what had happened, and in particular, that Mark had made specific threats to kill you.
Yes.
Those officers first, and you must correct me if I have this wrong, told you that nothing could be done because there wasn't sufficient evidence.
They told me that that I was being a drama queen, and that if all they did all day was listened to disgruntled ex-wives, that they'd never get any real police work done. And that with regards to threats to kill, that it was my word against his. My daughter also verified what had been said.
Yes.
And my neighbours also were prepared to verify that he'd made an attempt at an earlier date to run me over.
Yes.
And they again said that my neighbours were not impartial, so they would not go forward with the threats to kill.
You've talked already about how attitudes have changed to mental health issues. This is an interesting example of attitudes towards domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, well, would you like to say what you think was at play there in their failure to respond? Do you think that was an attitude of the day?
I believe it can still be the attitude of now.
Yeah.
But no, I think that I actually referred this particular police officer to a domestic homicide that had happened in Essex a short time before, whereas the gentleman had shot his ex-partner and child and had turned the gun on himself but had actually survived. and I said that he had guns and everything. This particular police officer was, I don't want to say an old school thinker, because I have family in the police and I know that my family would never have behaved like that.
Yeah.
He wanted to go out and play cops and robbers. He didn't want to deal with women. He didn't even complete a dash risk assessment. He just couldn't be bothered. Just couldn't be bothered. And for some police officers, it's still continuing. And I see that through my professional role, not just personally.
You tried very hard, I think, and in fact reported the matter again 2 days later.
It was actually a neighbour.
A neighbour reported
A
it.
neighbour called because she was so concerned at the state I was in.
Yes, because you were in fear.
I was terrified.
Yes. Extremely unfortunately, we might put it this way, officers attended, and one of them was the officer who had attended previously and who you've just described.
Yes.
The upshot of all of this and all your efforts was that Mark was not arrested.
No. The police officer actually walked into my neighbour's property and said, "What's wrong now?"
Sally, your complaints about that officer's conduct, amongst others,
Yes.
have been upheld. Is that right?
Yes. He was apparently assigned to a domestic abuse unit.
After those events?
After those events, through the IPCC recommendation.
In order to, for training?
I presume so.
I see. Sally, for our purposes, the key, I think, is that because no arrest took place, no assessment of Mark and his mental health at that time took place.
Also, I had said that he had guns and another search wasn't carried out,
Yes.
which, again, if they'd carried out a search based on the allegations that I'd made, they may well have found the sawn-off shotgun that ended his and his mum's life.
Yes. One of the things that the DHR concludes, if you look at this, please, on page 48, if you would like to, is that although a dash risk assessment, this is in paragraph 122, 4 paragraphs down within that paragraph, that although a dash risk assessment was eventually completed,
Yes.
and the conclusion was one of medium risk, that is principally because the reference to threats to kill was recorded as historic rather than current.
I mean, that's what the DHR found.
Yes.
However, as a professional that is trained and trains people to complete dash risk assessments, the fact that he had access to weapons
Yes,
immediately should have been high risk.
of course. I think you took some action, is this right? If you look, please, at page 44 and paragraph 110, you spoke, is this correct, to the duty worker at Open Road?
I did. So following advice from a friend of mine who was actually a forensics officer for Essex Police, and
Yes.
myself and Mark, she advised me to contact his drug worker. So I phoned, and I happened to speak to a friend who happened to be the duty officer
Yes.
for Open Road. I told that person that I knew that they couldn't disclose any information, but for safeguarding purposes I was going to give them information. They took that information, and I fully trust that that person recorded what I had disclosed, and they advised me to contact CDAS and speak to the duty worker because they were the clinical providers,
Yes.
which I did, but there is no record of that.
So there's no record of your contact with CDAS, and as far as we can see from all the records, no efforts were made at that time to act on the concerns you had raised.
No.
looking at the same page, please, at page 44 and paragraph 111, we can see that by the 25th of June 2012, Mark telephoned and attended CDAS and said that he wanted to discharge himself.
Yes.
He said he hadn't used drugs for 6 weeks. A urine test proved negative, and he was reviewed and discharged with a letter to his GP.
Yes.
And an aftercare plan that included Narcotics Anonymous. I think that was about the size of the aftercare plan, wasn't it?
Yes.
Now, first of all, talking about the lack of joined-up thinking, we also know that during the month of June, from the records, Mark attended Open Road's needle exchange on at least the 19th of June, the 26th of June, and the 29th of June, 4 days after
Yes.
he discharged himself, stating that he was abstinent.
Yes.
Staff at Open Road on the 29th of June were completely unaware that CDAS had discharged Mark.
Yes.
If we look again on page 44 and under paragraph 111, flags are raised essentially in the DHR about the fact that there don't appear to have been any particular or perhaps any adequate policies or procedures around the discharge or the disengagement from a person who is described as a high-risk client.
Yeah.
And in the penultimate paragraph on that page, the DHR notes that although obviously people are not compelled to attend CDAS or to receive services, he did attend, and he stated that he was abstinent and discharged himself effectively, and it raised no alerts.
No, they were specifically looking at the drug use, not the mental health presentations.
Yes. The DHR in the penultimate paragraph describes this as having possibly been another missed opportunity to convene a multi-agency meeting that would have identified that Mark had then disengaged from all services.
Yes.
That could also, a multi-agency meeting or some sort of multi-team working, could also have identified in late June 2012 was that he remained, it could have identified, I'm so sorry, that he remained at high risk of harm both to himself and others.
Yes.
By the 14th of July, Mark, in fact, made a call to the police.
Yes.
You detail that, well, you set out the relevant section of the DHR at paragraph 113 on page 45.
Yeah.
Tell us what he said during that call, as far as you have learned.
He asked the police to attend an address that didn't exist. He stated that he was the son of God, that I had crashed the car and his children were alone. As the address did not exist, no further action was taken by the police.
Yes. The DHR analysis concludes that further checks could have been made and that it could have been possible on that date to carry out a welfare check on him.
Absolutely. If they'd done so, they may well have used their powers under 136.
Yes, and detained him for assessment.
Yes.
We come, please, to the 28th of July, when Mark was arrested on this occasion for being drunk and disorderly.
Yes.
That arrest led to an assessment.
Eventually.
Now, you tell us that on arrest and in police custody, if you look, yes, it's there at paragraph 114B on page 45, that in police custody, Mark was claiming to be the son of God and half intergalactic being.
Yes.
And that he told officers that he had consumed 10 cans of lager, crack cocaine, heroin, and 40 milligrams of diazepam.
Yes. He was actually arrested walking down the middle of the high street, stopping cars and asking people's names, introducing himself as the Son of God and needing their name to see whether they could get into heaven. That's when he was arrested for being drunk and disorderly.
Thank you. Police deemed Mark medically fit for detention and held him overnight. I think overall it took around 19 hours for a mental health assessment to be carried out.
But I would just like to say that anybody that has consumed 10 cans of lager, crack cocaine, heroin and 40 milligrams of diazepam, in my non-medical opinion, would not have been fit to be detained and should have been taken to hospital immediately.
Thank you. We know from the notes that a Mental Health Act assessment was carried out on the afternoon of the 28th of July, Mark having been held in police custody overnight.
For 19 hours.
Yes. If you look, please, I think we can take this fairly shortly at page 46, paragraph 117, and the second paragraph up from the bottom of the page. A 3-man team of 2 Section 12 doctors and an approved mental health professional agreed that Mark did not have any identifiable mental illness.
Yes.
They concluded that hospital admission was not appropriate and that he had a problem with drugs.
Yes.
They also concluded that he was at that time connected to community services.
Yes.
That was not the case, as we now know.
Yes.
We also know, if you look at the second paragraph, please, on page 47, that the outcome of that assessment was passed back to Basildon Community Mental Health Team.
It was.
But that because of an administrative error, the report that was sent over to that team did not include any request for follow-up care.
It did not.
Neither Mark nor his mother were contacted thereafter.
No.
And the DHR explains that due to the lack of a diagnosis, that team would not have expected to follow up unless specifically asked to do so, and therefore we know that after that date, no further action was taken at all.
Correct.
We also learn, looking 3 paragraphs up from the bottom, or 4 paragraphs up from the bottom of page 47, that the approved mental health practitioner who was undertaking that Mental Health Act assessment had no idea that Mark had disengaged from community services.
No. In fact, they had no... they did not have access to any of Mark's records and solely relied on Mark's accounts.
Yes. One of the things you have learned alongside your legal team from the records, and we don't need to go to it, I don't think, but the DHR has been able to confirm that the approved mental health practitioner would not have any access to any computerised records for out-of-hours assessments.
No.
That approved mental health practitioner, therefore, may have had no idea whatsoever about any aspect of Mark's history.
Absolutely not.
By the end of July 2012, the only agency who were having any kind of remaining involvement with Mark were Family Mosaic.
Yes.
And that was why?
Because they were about to evict him.
Yes. So he was about to lose his home.
Yes.
Could we look, please, at page 54 of your witness statement and at the 3rd paragraph down? Just to note, and I think, Sally, you might say that this was or ought to have been obvious, by that stage, the DHR notes that Mark was at high risk of taking his own life.
Yes.
There were no agencies taking an overview. I think the GP prescribed diazepam again during the course of August 2012.
Yes.
Mark had reported to other agencies on a number of occasions that he binged on diazepam on occasion.
He did.
His own home was subject to a repossession order, so he was living with his mother.
He was living with his mother anyway. I think that's why the property was being one of the reasons why Mark wasn't so proactive on keeping that property, because by that stage he had moved in with his mum.
Yes. Was that for support? You've told us a little
Yes.
about their relationship. Thank you. He was receiving no benefits.
No,
His mother was in some financial difficulty.
she was.
She was 79
She was.
and getting weekly aid from a local church.
In the church that they're buried in, yes.
The next contact that we are aware of is a neighbour reporting concerns and officers attending to find both Mark and his mother deceased.
Yes.
Is that right? Thank you. Sally, I want to move on to summarise some of the missed opportunities to ensure that we've caught them all.
Yes.
And then I want to move on to some of the matters you have raised alongside some of your recommendations for change, which we'll come to towards the end. Are you happy to move on to those areas now?
I am, yes.
Thank you. I want to run through these, but you must tell me if you think there is anything additional, or I've missed anything, or you want to add anything. First, you've asked us to note that much more should have been done to analyse or at least assess the impact that the childhood trauma you have described had on Mark.
Yes.
And the ways in which that was connected to his substance misuse and later problems. We've noted a very high number of voluntary requests for assistance,
Yes.
which became, I think, it might be fair to say, at certain stages, fairly desperate pleas,
Absolutely.
including from you.
Yes.
Significant delays in assessments,
Yes.
even on those occasions, or one occasion where a psychiatrist had noted that the matter was urgent.
Yes.
A complete failure to provide early intervention or crisis support.
Yes.
A complete failure to provide any formal or settled mental health diagnosis,
Yes.
despite the numerous assessments and despite all of the factors that you have pointed out, looking through the way in which Mark was presenting, but also what he said to
Yes.
frontline services. A failure to provide or just even try antipsychotic medication.
Yes.
A failure to deal with the symptoms of psychosis, whatever they came from.
Yes.
A failure by statutory agencies to share information in a multidisciplinary team approach way.
Yes.
A failure to safeguard not simply Mark, but his mother, you, and your children.
Yes.
A failure to be alert to obvious safeguarding concerns.
Yes.
The fact of the lack of access to records out of hours that we've just noted.
Yes.
Reliance by a number of different agencies and a number of different professionals on what Mark was saying, taking those matters at face value.
Yes.
Numerous assessments or concerns or pieces of information not being shared.
Yes.
Cross-referrals to different agencies, referrals in circles, no planning or thought or coordination.
Yes.
Police failing to use or consider the use of even their powers under Section 136
Yes.
on more than one occasion.
Yes.
And police failures to act on intelligence appropriately, assess risk, and take him in.
Yes.
Do you think in that list, it is a summary, there is anything that I have missed? And we'll come on to some more of what you want to say about what happened. But in terms of the basics and the summary of missed opportunities, is there anything that you think I've missed in that list?
No, I'd like to highlight page 54, 1
Let's go to that now.
6.
Yes, let's start there.
Okay to read it?
Absolutely.
Mark did not understand why all the mental health professionals who he had been seeing were not doing anything to help him, even when he was pleading and clearly expressing he would hurt himself and others if not treated. Mark felt he was going round in circles. DHR clearly states the occasions when Mark raised concerns and sought help for his mental health issues. An example being on the 28th of February 2011, where the DHR states Mark threatened to kill himself or others if he did not get help, and on the same day took an overdose after attending appointments with the CDAS consultant psychiatrist and criminal justice mental health team practitioners, and being told that he did not have a mental health illness.
Yes.
Any concerns and complaints Mark raised himself generally followed the pattern of a lack of appropriate response from the Trust and other agencies. There was an absolute lack of empathy, care and understanding. In addition, I am of the view there were serious concerns over the quality of the forms which are completed by staff. They are lacking in appropriate detail and accuracy. There were delays in between Mark's assessment and a lack of follow-up.
Yes. Thank you. You also tell us that in going over these notes, as you have done so diligently, you've been astounded by some of the comments about that were made to Mark when he presented in crisis about controlling his anger.
Absolutely. He was told by a professional to control his anger and take responsibility if he hurt anybody. In my view, not only was this unprofessional and patronising, but shows the culture that the professionals involved with CDAS adopted. Where was the understanding of the fact that this was the exact reason why Mark was asking for help? After reading through what I have, it really is no wonder that Mark took his own life. From his perspective, what alternative was there?
Thank you. It is your view, I think, that this issue around the approach to Mark and others who present with substance misuse issues alongside clear mental health symptoms, I think what you tell us in another part of your statement is that you don't consider that these agencies or their staff lack the skills or knowledge to deal appropriately with people who are suffering in that way. You consider that this is squarely an attitude and a lack of empathy and understanding.
Yes.
In another part of your statement, you call it an organisation-wide, or in this case, 13 organisations-wide, discrimination towards drug-induced psychosis and treatment.
Drug addicts and any associated mental health.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I'd like to note before we move on to discuss your recommendations.
Can I just ask?
Oh, please do.
In your view, how should they have approached managing the psychosis, the mental health issues, alongside the drugs and substance abuse issues? How would you see that having worked? I mean, do you think, for instance, that CDAS should have been able to manage both of those within that agency? You've
Yes.
obviously thought about this quite carefully.
I mean, the purpose of having something like CDAS, having a care coordinator, is to ensure that the care is coordinated. Mark was not addicted to heroin. He was not physically dependent on it for the majority of the last 2 years of his life. He would take it as a coping strategy or self-medicate when he did feel the symptoms as described with the rage, etc. I simply believe that if he had been treated for his presenting mental health issues, such as by the early intervention team, the crisis team, a low level of antipsychotics that would have treated the symptoms, thus rendering Mark's usage to heroin would no longer be needed. What they could have done is, once his mental health was managed, we can see from the drug tests that he was barely using, then they could have worked on any relapse prevention. That's the whole point in having organisations like CDAS that have the mental health teams.
Thank you, that's very clear. Thank you.
Another thing I wondered, Sally, if you wanted to mention, do you remember there's a part of your witness statement where you tell us about a crisis centre, an example you give is one in Hertfordshire?
Yes.
For this purpose. Tell us about that. If you want to see it, that's at page 4 and paragraph 20 of your witness statement.
I know it.
Of course you do.
So in a professional role, I had calls to come across an organisation in Hertfordshire that had a very limited number of beds that they could provide to people in crisis. It was outside of the NHS, where someone that could be suffering drug-induced psychosis or any form of psychosis or be in crisis, suicidal ideation, could go there for 72 hours and be supported and monitored and then signposted as and when appropriate to the appropriate agencies. I believe that this resource is desperately underfunded in Hertfordshire alone, but that we need facilities like this nationwide. This isn't just an Essex issue, this is a nationwide issue. But that I believe that short-term beds where people can dip in and out and ensure that the appropriate care is taken is essential.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to some of the recommendations, both those that were in the DHR and your own, more importantly, one other matter I wanted to note is that one of the things you tell us is that in the aftermath of these events in early September 2012, you as a family received no support.
No, nothing.
You tried, I think, to obtain at least psychological support for your children.
I did, and with your permission, I'd just like to sort of highlight exactly what that looked like for us as a family.
Yes.
It was the first day back at school that they were found. By the time I'd collected my children and rounded them up and brought them home, his Facebook had been hacked. His photograph was all over the television, all over the local newspapers. I recall that some sort of protection order was put in place by the police to stop the newspapers from harassing us.
Yes.
Everywhere we went we went to a local supermarket and people were whispering because they recognised his face on the front of a daily national newspaper and my children were stood in front of it.
I see.
This is what we had to deal with, what I had to deal with and support my children with. We had family liaison officers from the police that did as much as they could, such as putting the protection orders in place to protect my children. Our GP was absolutely fantastic. However, her referrals for my children to get support were refused by CAMS because my children had not witnessed the incident.
I think you tell us in your witness statement that for completely understandable reasons, that is something that still, to this day, makes you immensely angry.
Extremely angry.
Can we talk for a moment, please, about the recommendations that were made in the Domestic Homicide Review? If we go to page 74, and to the matters that were noted in relation to SEPT mental health services.
Yes.
I don't think we need to go through all of those because almost all of them you have already noted.
Yes.
Missed opportunities, discrepancies in potential diagnoses, delays, poor communication, lack of joined-up treatment. One of the things I wanted to ask you about the recommendations in this DHR that took some time, you understand that a domestic homicide review is carried out with the purpose in itself of effecting change or flagging up matters where change is needed, and that's why it was ordered. As far as you are aware, what action has been taken by any agency in response to the matters that are listed in conclusion or recommendation in the DHR?
Sorry, can you repeat that? That
It was
really
so long. I don't know why I put that at such length. As far as you're aware, what has been done following the DHR? What has changed?
Very little. As new generations of staff come into frontline statutory services such as police, such as medical, local authorities, then the culture appears to change with more understanding around trauma, around complexities of addiction,
Yes.
of domestic abuse. However, a lot of these organisations still have senior management as the old school thinkers, and they are the ones that drive
The approach?
lack of change.
Yes, I see. Have you ever been specifically contacted about or notified of any action taken as a result of the domestic homicide review?
No.
I want to talk, please, looking at the time, about what action you would like to see taken and what change you think should occur. If we can look, in fact, I don't think you need it, but some of those recommendations that you make are at page 68 of your witness statement. Let's start with this, and Sally, I'll just flag it up and I'll ask you to speak to us about it. Two of the things that you note are that mental health records should be available on the NHS app,
Yes.
and that they should be as accessible to all NHS agencies as physical health records are.
Absolutely.
Is there anything more that you want to say about that particular suggestion?
I think it's something that needs to be implemented as a matter of urgency, and I would ask the Chair to consider that it's a recommendation that be made in the interim, because I believe that people are still at huge risk
Yes.
of dying or being killed, because the record service is so complex. It's so difficult for a GP to access the community mental health team record, for the drug and alcohol service to be in touch with the mental health team. There's no fluid one-stop approach, and I think that you know, we are all human, the people that are working these computers, and there are going to be clerical errors, but unfortunately those clerical errors can kill people, can result in people dying. So, you know, if we could all, if everyone knew whether we'd had our COVID injections or not from an app, why can we not add that someone is vulnerable due to their mental health or,
yes.
or due to their, you know, it's a plain thing of medication. If you go to A&E with a broken bone, they may not specifically be able to put you on a type of medication for that pain relief because you're an opiate user and at risk of overdosing.
Yes.
But unless you self-disclose that, if you're able to, they wouldn't know that because it's not accessible.
Yes. Thank you. One of the other things you say about substance misuse services is that you consider that those services should be monitored by peers, non-NHS peers with lived experience of dual diagnosis or of substance misuse.
Absolutely. I'm not against anyone with a degree, but getting people to design a service or monitor a service that have just read about addiction in a book,
yes,
is not going to improve the service that patients are receiving. People like myself, my children are the best, and not that I'm saying my children should sit on the board, but we are best placed to say, do you know what, you're doing that wrong.
Yes.
Have you thought about this approach? Why haven't you done this?
Yes.
Why isn't this being done?
You also consider that CPNs who work within substance misuse should have very clear and defined training in that particular aspect of mental health care.
Absolutely. I also believe that they need trauma-informed training. I am yet to come across somebody with a substance misuse issue that does not have trauma, whether that is what led to the addiction or has happened as a result of the addiction. Nobody chooses to live like that.
Thank you. You in fact consider, I think, that anyone who accesses a substance misuse service should, at that entry sort of access stage, be offered a full and comprehensive mental health assessment.
Absolutely.
And that is for the reason you've just described.
Yes.
You consider that residential rehabilitation services should be reinstated.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Now it's very difficult to get funding. In fact, many of the rehabilitation units that were open
Yes.
when Mark went to rehab no longer exist. It's now focused on community rehabilitation. You go to a community centre from 9 till 5, and then you get psychosocial support, and then you go back to your flat, your house, your property in the evening with no support, where you're vulnerable to outside factors, people knocking on your door, offering you drugs, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Also the walls closing in on you. You're trying to manage your triggers, your withdrawal also. You're setting these people up to fail. You know, rehab is a therapeutic environment where people can learn the skills that they require to manage the symptoms that would lead to them relapsing.
Yes.
They can access counselling, relapse prevention techniques, and it's a safe place for them to do it. At the end of the day, people relapsing costs the country more money in the long run when you look at arrests, time in hospital, the cost on the public purse to anyone that may find themselves street homeless.
Yes.
I know it's all divided into different little parts, but actually, if you put somebody back into rehab for a period of 6 to 9 months, people can remain drug-free for 20 years.
Yes.
That small cost then leads to someone being able to lead a fulfilling and proactive life and donating back into society, not only financially by being able to contribute through work, but also by providing positive role models socially to those that are going through it. You cannot put a price on that.
One of the other things you have called for is specialist support for the children of those who have taken their own lives.
Absolutely.
Sally, I know that we have a video and another photograph to see, but in this time, is there anything that I haven't covered or that you would like to address now in your evidence?
There's just one part, page 68. HI. The culture of once a junkie, always a junkie, still thrives in EPUT and the various other associated agencies. It is a disgrace that access inappropriate mental health services is so complicated, including making referrals from one mental health team to another or refusals by services to accept someone onto their caseload. Referrals and services need to be simplified to ensure that cases like Mark's never happen again.
Thank you. Sally, as long as you are content, I'm going to ask for your video to be shown, and then there's one photograph at the end of that.
Didn't even know I wasted it all just to watch you go. I kept everything inside, and even though I tried, it all fell apart. What it meant to me will eventually be a memory of a time I tried so hard and got so far. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. One thing, I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. I designed this rhyme to remind myself how I tried so hard. In spite of the way you were mocking me, acting like I was part of your property. Remembering all the times you fought with me, I'm surprised it got so. Things aren't the way they were before.
And then I think one last photograph, please. Thank you.
He was a fisherman.
He was, him and his brother.
Yeah.
Both were.
Thank you.
Sally, thank you. What we're going to do is take a very short break now just to check whether there are any questions, any other questions for you from any other call participants. And if not, that will be the end of your evidence. Chair, I understand I'm being asked to indicate that we might today take a 45-minute lunch break, if you are content.
So back here at 1:30.
Yes.
Can I thank you very much indeed for your evidence? It won't have been easy, but it's been very helpful to us. Thank you.